Nice landing.
You have some guests approaching at 2 o'clock. And you guests are coming too.
What a big welcome. I'll make you just like perforated cheese for return. Bingo!
Oh, it seems like they love you so much. They're not gonna let you go.
No problem. You guys are roast chicken.
Remember when FromSoft made janky-ass AA games that didn't take themselves too seriously? Most of y'all probably don't, because let's be honest, we didn't give a shit about them until they started making the Souls games. Before that, they were mostly known for Armored Core, third-person mech games that surprisingly still have a loyal following. Well, in between Armored Cores 3 and 4, the Souls boys were tasked by Microsoft to create a game that actually got Japanese people to pick up an Xbox. You see, in Japan, for whatever reason, the original Xbox wasn't selling for shit. Some say it was because of the console's size, while others say it's because of Japanese consumers not fucking with foreign products. Either way, the damn thing wasn't selling for shit, and you'll probably have an easier time selling life insurance or something equally as boring. With all this in mind, you would think that FromSoft would tap into the types of games that Japanese culture prefers, right?
Nope.
They go the complete opposite direction and create a game that rivals Broforce with how over-the-top American it is.
Maybe America's faith in freedom hasn't faded just yet. And Jody, I'm taking back our country, going from west to east.
Go west. I mean, east, young man.
Ah yes, American patriotism, surely that appeals to the Japanese gamer. I don't know what the fuck the logic was there, but I do know one thing, the fact that this game never came out in America until 2 years ago is criminal, especially since it was mostly us Americans that found this game so amusing. Well, I can't complain now since it's finally been ported over. Is it worth playing as a game nowadays? Is the exaggerated Americana still as charming? A definite yes for the latter, but for the former, we'll get back to that a little later. For now, what's the plot?
It looks like a fancy party is about to start. This kind of party is a first for me. Mr. President?
Okay, let's party! Welcome to the White House.
So Metal Wolf Chaos takes place in modern day America where freedom has gone to shit. This is mostly due to a coup enacted by Vice President Richard Hawke, who not only controls the military now, but also all government institutions across the country. You play as Michael Wilson, freedom-loving president of the United States, who doesn't like this very much, so he dons a mech suit called Metal Wolf to take back the country from west to east. For the rest of the game, that's pretty much what you're doing, taking back key cities across the country while blowing up outposts and killing anything that Richard sends your way. So even with the improved resolution visually, this game isn't going to be impressing anyone these days. Never mind the 30 frames per second, just look at that grass texture and the way things explode. You know what era this game came out. However, considering that this game went for a realistic art style and still looks pretty decent means something. There's more detail in these environments than say Armored Core 3 where almost every level was some gray urban space. This game has that too with levels like New York and San Francisco, but they make sure to spice these areas up with different types of buildings and a bunch of lights and billboards that these places have in real life. This game is just easier on the eyes in general for the simple fact that this game is constantly switching up the scenery. I mean, you are traveling through the entire United States, so it does make sense, and they got the general look of each city down. Far from the worst, but nothing spectacular. However, any game with destructible environments is on my good side. You know, the music in this game is actually pretty good. It's pure early 2000s with the funky alternative rock. A bunch of these songs sound like they belong in a Tony Hawk game or some shit. I do wish that it was mixed better though. A lot of the sounds in this game are either uncomfortably loud or really muffled, especially the guns and explosions, which is a real issue since those are the sounds you're going to be hearing the most throughout the game.
But enough about all that. I know why you're here. You've seen memes of this game, and you've heard that the dialogue and voice acting is fucking absurd. And yeah, you would be right.
It's like this game was voice acted by an AI trying to mimic Americans while reading off a script written by Tommy Wiseau.
We've been made public enemy number 1. How about seeking exile or asking for help from other nations?
No. I'm the president. I can't be the one to start a war in this country. I'll be the one to wage the war.
Mr. President.
Hey, Joe Wolf. Planning on wiping out New York this time? You enemy of the people, I, Richard Hawk, won't let you get away with it. I, Richard Hawk, will uphold American justice without fail.
Yeah! Suck on my missile punch!
It's schlock and cheesy in the best of ways. The exaggerated patriotism probably wouldn't be as funny without the stilted voice acting. A lot of the satire is as subtle as a hammer, though I'm sure it was intentional.
Mr. President, the Alcatraz cannon just started to recharge.
I'm on the move. I'll smash it faster than a Florida recount.
Wouldn't it be funnier if it wasn't though? Like this is actually what the devs think most Americans are like or would like? I guess they wouldn't be too far off the mark.
It appears all the resistance activities have gone south.
Jody, those that died are imposters. I am still here.
So?
Believe in your own justice. I won't lose to that false prophet. And the reason is because I'm the president of the United States of America.
Mr. President!
Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't live up to how absurd this game is in other aspects. It's a pretty generic third-person shooter if I'm going to be honest. There's like no creativity when it comes to the missions in this game. It's the same destroy these set number of towers almost every time. The main challenge comes from once in a while getting time, which doesn't really do anything but push you to get through the missions as fast as possible, which I never find fun. In this game, it's especially a pain in the ass since your guns are underpowered as fuck in the beginning. Buildings and tanks take forever to take down, unless you're abusing this leap attack, which doesn't even feel like something you're supposed to do. With how often enemies are in your face, it doesn't make sense how you have no melee attack. You tower over all of these infantry guys, and you're telling me you can't just like Spartan kick them in the face or something? You know, I wouldn't have an issue with the repetitiveness of these missions if the gunplay in itself was satisfying, but that is not the case. This is definitely no Armored Core where you're flying high and fast. You're grounded as fuck with some pretty stiff movement. Not to mention that the game has that awful automatic lock-on system that was prevalent in third-person shooters of this time. You know, those ones where you have to stare at an enemy and pray that the game locks onto the target you want? It's inconsistent as fuck and straight up frustrating when it comes to bosses like Warner, where you have to take out its dozens of missile launchers on a time limit. You also learn with this asshole and other bosses that bazookas and missile launchers are the only weapons that do any notable damage. It's a shame too, since there's a crap ton of different loadouts possible with 8 weapon slots. There's also a bunch of different weapon types that you can mess around with, from railguns to snipers, but unfortunately a lot of them don't do enough damage, and the egregious reload times make them highly situational. Well, at least the selection animation of these guns popping out of your trunk is cool. God, I'm really trying to find some more positives here, but there's really not that much content to begin with in this game. It's pretty short at only 7 hours, but most of the 7 hours is just you doing this. I guess the amount of mayhem you can cause is nice, though you can't go too crazy because of these hostages that you gotta rescue. Rescuing hostages improves your economy, which leads to better weapons, so it's one of those optional things that's not really optional unless you like handicapping yourself in games for some reason. It's cool that there's some secondary objectives sprinkled in here, but I find it irritating that I have to constantly switch my weapon to save these people. You see, shooting at these cages frees them, but blowing them up kills them. Already doesn't make sense, but the reason it's aggravating is because you're almost always going to be using explosives, which means a lot of stopping in your tracks and switching your weapon. I showed a lot of clips of bosses, and the reason I haven't talked about them is because there's really nothing to talk about. Except for Richard, they're all stationary as fuck with like one move you gotta watch out for. Double bazookas rips through most of them like paper.
I'd like to see that day too.
Yeah. I feel like a mother hen here.
Okay, Mr. President.
So yeah, that's Metal Wolf Chaos. This one's a little tough to recommend because as a game it's pretty mediocre, but as a piece of satire, it's excellent. This is one of the few games where I was looking forward to the cutscenes more than the gameplay, and the reason is because the stupid dialogue and voice acting is where most of the entertainment is. I was enjoying this in the beginning, but the monotonous gameplay did start to get to me. I would still say try this out if you're looking for something amusing, but only on sale. $25 for an old ass, short ass game like this is a bit much. Not to mention that the XD port straight up crashes for Radeon users for some reason. So anyone with those graphics cards, keep that in mind. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. Until next time.